aware the mental health is real, and then, like you say, bringing awareness to not only the people, the community, and the families that it can be beneficial to get mental health, but also, I hate to say it, but employers. Right. Because if you don't provide them with some element, now that employer provides you with that stigma once again. Right. So, and people, well, as well I do, you talk about the red brush and what else. What's the first thing they doing? I'm not losing my job because I had a headache yesterday, or because I had a nightmare last night, or my husband caught me sleepwalking outside. So now we have a whole other dynamic to deal with. That's employment. That's so that dynamic of getting over fear is once again, it's a slow step process. You got to crawl before you walk, and then you got to definitely find out and know where your facilities are, whether you have a medical facility, a mental health facility, and then like you're talking about. When you go to college, you can do a tour of the college campus and everything, and they'll teach you where your academic counselor is. Right. But they may skip the fact that you have a mental health counselor on campus as well. They just say, okay, this is a medical facility. You can go to medical or infirmary here. But they don't talk about there's a separate room or a separate nurse or nurse practitioner or LPC or MSW, somebody that can sit down and talk to you about mental health issues and stuff like that, because we all know college is a new experience. You're away from home. You got your own room. You gotta deal with a roommate. If you don't have to deal with a roommate, you got to deal with meeting people from different states, different countries, and there's a lot of things going on. Joe down the hall is making shrimp fried rice and greens, and the whole hallway's thinking, now you upset about that, but now you got to be able to go down and talk to him and say, hey, can we do something different?
I would be amiss to say, the veterans, I thank them so much for their service. I mean, they've been, my dad was in the service, and I know, but they've been through a lot. Listen, get it right. And sometimes, I know this is not me trying to make a controversial statement, but I'm gonna say the way I feel, underappreciated. I'm sorry, I do believe it. They're unappreciated, and I appreciate each and every one of the servicemen who's given their service for our freedom. Let's get this right.
It's overwhelming that they're underappreciated, underpaid, and undercared for. But they are the backbone of what makes our nation what it is.
The very reason we're allowed to have these open forum discussions.
Right. 100%. And I appreciate it so much because I know, that's one of the things. And even they, you got to think, this is just a training when they train, right? You would think they train to be mentally strong, really tough, beyond what we could ever think. Beyond whatever we could think. But now I got to come back, deprogram, get counseling for something that, and that's the thing. So it's very vital.
Yeah.
In order for them to move on with their lives, it's very vital. But then I'm feeling weak, because of this, and they shouldn't. I think, and I think that's, one of the things about, a survivor of abuse, they may, remain silent because of the fear that they won't be believed. That traumatic stress again, coming back up now to know, that this is, something because of the trauma they had to hide their pain, hide their anger, and I hate that.
I think it's clear to see why soldiers in particular struggle with it so much because, not only are they taught not to talk about weaknesses, they're taught about to have no, to actually develop the mentality that I have no weakness. And then, like you say, now the battle's over, and now we want to put them in therapy and ask them to be vulnerable. And we spent those years training that part of their brain almost out of their personality, and now we need them to turn that off. And it's just you really feel for them.
You think about the longevity. You go in. The average soldier go in 18 to 21, and if he stays 4 years, 6 years, whatever the case may be, those are so informative years of your life when you're doing everything anyway. So now and then if you're in a situation where you go to war, you go to battle, now you've added even more. Now you're releasing, you don't have an automatic job. You got to take care of a family. You got to take, so now compounding things on top of that, And for the same token, I hate to say this, think about guys who were released from prison.
Yeah. I mean, that's right.
It's a whole nother, it's a
That's
whole
right.
nother dynamic,
That's right.
and it's so scary. You've been a hard baller and a tough guy for so many years, and then you've done 10, 15 years, and then you release back out into the public sector, and you expect them to go right back into the whole.
So let's get into it. Let's talk about it. PTSD in relationships, right? It affects the families. Trauma does. It affects friendships. It affects marriages as well. But it also affects, a lot when you say about the families. A lot of times people stop expressing their emotions. They came back differently than they were before, right? My dad said that before. His brother, he wasn't the same guy. Wasn't the same guy when he came back. And that's the thing, that trauma, and the things, because it damages trust. Trauma does. It damages your trust, and that's one thing. People become, a lot of times they become distant because they try to protect themselves.
Right. Not only that, but then, like you said, the relationships that they had with the wife or the kids, the daughters, or whatever the case may be, and the sons, you have been traumatized. If you've just been to basic training, you've been traumatized. Then you go to your duty station, you've been traumatized. Then you go to war or just a battle, you've been traumatized, and you continue. Then you come back, and everybody you deal with is an equal or above, and you have a chain of command, so you have the respect and this, that, and everything else. You have to listen to that. Then you come back to the household that's been running for the last 4 or 5 years without you. Now you're fighting for the fact of dealing with your PTSD, but also the chain of command that you're not in no more.
Right. So, I think that's what you said, and then it's that as well. And this goes back to when we talk about trauma and domestic violence, there's different things, especially domestic violence when it comes to it, because a lot of times, that person, right, may have spoke about it once, but then went back and now just stop speaking about it. Right. Just stop it, but it's still going on. Right. It's still going on, but just stop speaking about it and really changing a whole lot. And this is this is far out, man, but I used to do counseling, and it's one of those things where, and I was professional about it. Don't get me wrong. But one of the things I started to see is, it takes it takes you a lot to cut off the things in your life to come in and talk to you two, right? And cut it off. What happens is, even though I don't say it, you definitely affected. And they start to see that and start to ask questions to you. What's going on with you? Chad, how you, and starting to piece things together. It's like, and one of those things is you have to be honest, but of course you can't delve all in it, but you have to be honest enough, because then again, I'm spilling the beans about myself. Right. What about you? I get it. It's not about me, as far as, being the therapist, but it's one of those things. It's hard, and that's what I'm saying. When you keep things in, it's very hard to keep them uncovered, because it's hard to do. And if you do it for a certain amount of time, and then what happens, right? It's one of those things. Sometimes, in a marriage, maybe not with domestic violence, but somebody that's suffering from trauma, if somebody, definitely starts to, kind of separate from them, and come distant, it's because of them. They don't care no more. And it's not that they're suffering from things, this trauma that they're having, and they need help. And that's the thing, that we speak about as well. And that's why sometimes, even this is in substance abuse, we talk about, finding 5 people that you can kind of talk to that can, I know we can say keeping it real, but definitely know some of the ins and outs of the struggle that you might be going through. So they won't just be, thinking they can listen without judgment, basically. Same thing with the trauma, with PTSD. They need to learn more about it too, right? Just like we are today, learn a little bit about it, and that just stick with me when you said that. I'm gonna go look at that too when you said that about shell shock, because I'm sure a lot of it being missed, and that's the thing, right? And I'm not trying to be funny, but you don't know what you don't know. And I hate that, because it's like, what do you mean? But it's probably a lot of people said, oh man, that's, shrugged it off as that. And really, going back to not trying to down football, going back to what you're saying, What do you mean concussion? Yeah, concussion. Yeah, many of them. Yeah, damage in the brain.
Yeah.
Trauma is what it says. Trauma to the brain, right?
Right.
Those things over and over again. It started, and I'm so glad because people love football. Let's get it right. I do too. But in order to preserve that, you're gonna have to make it safer. And they have. I mean, they have. And like I said, I'm not saying they have. Certain things you can't do. I mean, if I keep running to you, it's just the way it is.
Right.
Let's get it right. But definitely, limiting the occurrences could help, right?
Right.
And also, kind of listen to that. We should talk about that one time about the concussions and things like that with athletes. And they've done a great job with that. And because of education, same thing we're doing with PTSD in a smaller scale, but still yet getting the right people and get them in the seats, right, in order to talk about the things they need.